Got it. Hello, YouTube. Welcome, Matthew Dolezal. I'm super excited to learn from you over the next 55 minutes. You're one of the wisest and most well-read and most well-practiced people that I know, which is why I wanted to have you on. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit the like button, subscribe, follow along. We're going to start with some kind of rapid fire questions and then go into some longer, let you go off, if that's all right. Where are you
Okay.
right now?
I'm sitting in my living room on the floor.
How's your heart?
My heart is actually breaking wide open with this material, and thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. I said it was a rapid fire question. You did that one very well. What have you been studying for the past 15 years that you want to share with us today?
So, wrapping that in a nutshell, my
I
study
know.
comes from the traditions called Rajanika.
Great.
It's under the volumes of the Sri Vidya, the auspicious wisdom of the goddess, and my teacher is Douglas Brooks. And he's one of the leading scholars under the Shakta traditions of goddess-centered Tantra out of South India.
Got it. And you're leading yoga teacher trainings at this point.
Yes, I begin one this Friday. I've reduced this group down to 6 people, and it will be probably one of my best offerings yet because I'm on the boundary of a teaching failure. And so what I'm working on is that, as we all know, the layers of studentship are changing and shifting dynamically quickly and at a pace that we can't even keep up with. But yet, what I'm working on right now is to actually take that failure into let's say failure as a teacher into becoming a better student.
I so want to dive into that idea as failure as a faithful attempt in learning, a fail. And this I just read yesterday: if you don't learn to fail, you fail to learn.
Yeah.
So there's this movement of um, getting clear, and I'm curious what it can you identify more particularly what that failure in teaching is,
Yeah, so
if you feel comfortable with it.
basically of this like archive cavern of the anthology of my study and my practice, basically trying to teach from that platform or press those teachings on students is a very challenging modality, especially when you're talking about esoteric concepts, a rich language of Sanskrit breakdown, root and etymology, and then working into the layers of comprehension and understanding from the basics into, let's say, very advanced higher education teachings. And yet it's very challenging to make meaning if there is not a basis for that foundation. And so I would say that leading into building a solid foundation for this practice begins with the first baby step of what you want out of the practice. And we all need to come to that moment of understanding, what do we want? What are we willing to do for it? And how are we going to make that happen? And so that failure for me was, I wanted it so bad, and I wanted everyone to be caught up on this speed that in a way I was trying to move too quickly, teach above my level, and show them what I know rather than teach them what I know. Or then after, let's say, 6 times, and I was on the peak of my trainings, my workshops, my classes, and during COVID, everything's gone. I do have still a solid student base and that are very supportive, but yet it's time to go back to the drawing board. And that epic failure is probably the second one of my life. And I own them and I honor them as the most growth and development that I've ever reached into the center of my heart. And what I'd say is yoga is the midline between your breakdown and your breakthrough. And they could be one and the same when we come to the learning processes of holding the mirror in front of ourselves, not only with our successes, our achievements, our accomplishments, but yet our failures, our setbacks, our pitfalls, our weaknesses, and even more so our blind spots in teaching.
Okay, this is a perfect transition to where I'm hoping to go and why I'm more excited about this conversation. I'm coming to believe more and more that different people have different things to teach. And the more passionate and involved someone is in something, the more they have to teach and share that with other people. And that you are working, I want to make sure I have this right, you are working to develop a course or a mentorship model or something in the summer or fall. Like you're working to repackage, restructure what you have to teach in a way that will be more assimilable. That's not a word. Assimilatable to
Acceptable,
students.
yeah, accessible. So
Accessible.
you
Thank
and I
you.
share these words that oftentimes I say practical, pragmatic, and accessible.
Great.
And everything that I've done up until this point was trying to put things in a little bit of an organized box. And so I
Yes.
study a deep alignment-based tradition of modern postural yoga, so asana movements, and that idea ends up being oftentimes wrapped around the word discipline, and how that word has got a really kind of a negative connotation when we come to studentship, especially. It's kind of like the buzzword of like,
Yes.
oh, I'm not going to go there, let's back off. But yet when you transform that word and break it down a little bit to personal responsibility and accountability, it softens it into what more we can do together. And so basically my new platform presentation and offering is something that I've kept wraps until this moment right now. And
Yes.
I'm calling it Fluid Realms. And so
Amazing.
Fluid Realms is the softening of a staunch and even rigid alignment system into more of a flow-based practice of still taking that foundation, that platform, but springboarding it into more subtleties in practice and some of the deeper, more esoteric philosophical understandings that allow them to offer ancient teachings for modern times that peer back into the past to bring it through the present moment and reach into the future as time moving from all different directions. And so really what I'm working on right now is the layers of my practice that's now with my girlfriend, Stacey Swear. She's been in it for probably 30 years. And so our yoga together is called Effort and Grace. And so I like to say that I'm the effort and she's the grace. But the empowerment in the midline is through softening. And that's where this fluid realms resides. And so in that space in between, the silence in between words, and let's say the efficacy of meaning, this is what I'm really about. When we can have primary experiences together and reach into the center of the heart and commune the word manas, that's mind and heart. The mind sinks into the depths of the heart, and the heart gracefully rises to the occasion to honor the words that come out of your mouth with couth, class, and respect, and always choosing kindness first.
So I can see why we get along so well. I want to help you develop this course in real time and basically take you, because I don't think you're the only person on the planet that may be watching this who has something to offer and teach, whose heart's in the right place, that wants to bring what they have for their own mental well-being. I think one of the greatest things we can do for our own mental health is do our best to offer what we have to teach, especially as we age or go through these transitions like you're going through. So I kind of wanted to walk through a process of just helping you design what this might be in real time in a way that might help other people do similar things.
And that's a wonderful start and approach. I think the recursion of learning is where we're coming from, Sean. And
Yes,
you and I
yes, yes, yes.
and played and tossed the ball back and forth. And you know I made the analogy many times. I was throwing the ball in a game of toss as if I was playing with a major league pitcher.
With your students.
With my students.
When you're like, let's break down the Sanskrit word of manas and what it means. And they're just like, oh my God, I can't even, I'm still waiting to catch the last ball you threw.
Breaking down Om on my first evening as AUM and Shiva Shakti and Ganesh may not be the most appropriate layer to dive into a 200-hour level training with a basic introduction to yoga in new school, maybe let's not say beginners, but
sure.
Let's not say dabblers, but newer
pre-service teachers.
Yes,
is a good way to say it.
And so really, the game of long toss is fun, but you have to know who you're playing with. Are you playing with a kindergartner? Are you playing with a high school player? Or are you playing with a major league baseball player? And basically what I've noticed is I'm trying to have these conversations almost speaking to myself as the other side goes blank. And that's never a good way of connecting with students in a learning process that can be fast, can be arduous, can be intense. And it's okay to not know, it's okay to be confused. And with that, I've just been able to sit in that confusion, that's discomfort. But unfortunately, at times it can feel like you're on a deserted island by yourself.
Especially when culturally, like people we like to know. And like that certainty feels good. I like to know where I'm going. And as soon as you open up that point of really uncertainty, the anxiety creeps in. that feeling of maybe not being safe, where I don't know where I stand in relationship to the teacher all of a sudden. And
Mhm.
now I'm feeling this anxiety and that shuts me down. And then there's not that learning really isn't helpful, right? Because,
Absolutely. And the style like allows, let's say, a more demanding and commanding style to
right.
persist, and oftentimes can be caught into manipulation, coercion.
Yep.
You're telling me what to do, control,
Yep.
authoritarianism, and I am not that guy.
And that does that, those threads of imbalanced, say, that exists probably in the history of yoga teaching.
It's a rampant epidemic.
Okay,
No pun intended. No
okay,
pun
let's move.
intended.
Let's move aside. So what I'm most excited to see this conversation move as a kind of prototype of the questions that I would want to ask us if we were co-designing this course together,
Sure.
as you being any other person that might be watching this trying to design a course.
And I just
Are we
thank you.
ready for just don't doing the big questions?
Yeah, well, Sean, thank you very much for your time and your space
And
and the energy to do this. And I'm very excited. It's been in the cave of my heart for a while, and after 15 years, I'm finally ready to
ready.
use this material.
And I think this is why you reached out to me on for the Wisdom Workshop as a
Uh-huh.
container for you to do this work. Is that part of it? I did what
100%.
Is there anything other reasons why you signed up for the Wisdom Workshop starting this week?
The word that's the buzzword for me is cohesion.
Okay.
A lot of moving parts coming together to enhance the whole.
Amazing.
And I would say that that's my style of teaching. Learning to spin many plates while, running while juggling, and then also realizing it's okay to drop the balls. It's okay to stop. It's okay to add material, revise material. And really what we're working on is my 3 pillars of teaching, and we'll get into that.
Let's just do that now. That's not where I was going to go, but let's just do it since you just said it. What are the 3 pillars of teaching?
The first one is learning to critically think along the way with all the information that you have at this moment. That could be the biggest thing when studying, let's say, spirituality, science, religion, whatever topic the subject of study is. And if you're taking it seriously, it is a very important piece to learn to think for yourself. Otherwise, once again, you're in that kind of rearing
danger zone.
You're in a danger zone of being kind of trapped in dogma or other positions that oftentimes are hard to break free from, especially when you're 15 years deep. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the willingness to change your mind when facts replace facts, and you must follow the evidence. That's a very hard one to admit your mistakes and realize that you may be wrong.
Yeah.
And I say, how do you know you're right if you're unwilling to be wrong? And so then the third one is the willingness to ask the challenging questions, to sit in the discomfort of what we're about to do. We don't know where we're heading. This is not staged. This is all live. And so those challenging questions sometimes need to be met with honest answers without fooling ourselves. And how often, like when we paint the vision and picture of the people we mentor, we aspire to, or like we look up to, oftentimes we paint that picture as a very wonderful caricature. But oftentimes the art doesn't match the character. And we know this through the history of time.
So much to say that I'm refraining from saying. Big question number 1. Who do you see this as? Who is in a position to benefit from this course?
The people that are positioned to benefit from this course are people that are eager in the learning process of philosophy, people that have a somewhat foundation, a decent foundation of yoga philosophy, and we can build upon that platform and come together. But even more so, I see myself as a teacher's teacher, and I haven't really gotten there yet, to be honest.
Great.
And this is hard for me to say, but I feel like I'm more of a threat than a resource in this community. And I think I'm not teaching to the appropriate market, the appropriate crowd or people. And my words sometimes can be the articulation and the kind of wordsmithing and tying it together on the fly can be off-putting at times for people that maybe not having the language or, let's say, the foundation needed to stay in the conversation.
Fantastic. I would still on that same question. It seems to me like an obvious group is are yoga teachers that have already gone through a yoga teacher certification and are interested in taking their practice a little bit further.
Absolutely. And I think it's also the ones that are willing to think outside of the box of what they've already been presented, and arouse the sense of awe and wonder as a beginner's mind, and coming from that place again and again. This experience through COVID has been the most humbling experience in my life, or maybe the second most. But really what that is that that like first attempt of learning really breaks us into what more is possible and what we can do together. And I always say, learn, grow, thrive, and flourish in the beauty of togetherness. And right now, it's time to anchor in. And so I feel like this is the gestation time, and something will be birthed very soon, but not in that gruesome, barbaric way, in a more, let's say, easeful and gentle and soft manner, because my background is not that way. My lifestyle, how I grew up, my family, and where I'm from. And so
Chicago?
Yeah, just outside of the city of Chicago in the rough
And you were a bond trader before you turned yoga teacher?
Yes.
And a successful, like, high cutthroat bond trader?
Yes. The best opportunity I never want to do again.
Yeah. Okay. So we have question one is, who is in a position to benefit from this course? I ask this because working to get clear on the kinds of people that, from my perspective, how I approach this is, I wanted to find the students that I wanted to teach, not because they're the students that I want to teach, but because they're the students that are ready and appreciate my unique style of teaching, which I identified in a university classroom as like 10% of my students are really like, wow, I see what you're doing and I love it. And then, you know, a third of them are like, I kind of see what you're doing and that's cool. And half of them are like, what's on the exam? And I'm like, that's not the question I care to answer.
Yeah. What do I need to memorize to pass the test? And
correct.
And so Sean,
Seth Godin has a great piece on, you know, on why that's so detrimental to education. And I just want to, this question, who is in a position to benefit from who is it for, is really the first to be able to identify this. Actually gives us a lot of ways to really broadcast. So just from what you said, are you eager to learn the deeper realms of yoga philosophy? If not,
absolutely.
Don't do this.
Yeah,
are you eager to build on the foundation of philosophy that you already have? If yes, no, are you interested to be challenged? And are you willing to think outside of the box? If no, this course is not for you. Are you eager to embark on a new journey with beginner's mind? Yes. And then are you interested in learning with the beauty of togetherness? Well, when you put it like that, I want to know where do I like, and this is part of the reason why I think we get along, is because I am interested in what I see to be these real deep, profound truths from the Sanskrit tradition that are just, it's like a new window for me, that all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this makes total sense. So anything else on this question of who is in a position to benefit from this course besides people like you and I?
I think anyone that has a 200-hour teacher training under their belts, or even more so a 300-hour under their belts, and anyone that's well-trained in any of the subjects of study that wants to challenge the learning processes of, let's say, putting ourselves in the place of laying it all on the table, and no longer having the file cabinet of the organization, but having a little bit more fun, like a mad scientist that throws the papers in the air and starts using them as like its own periodic table, to not only cultivate the understanding and comprehension, but then generate knowledge and wisdom that we can share and even more so applied to our everyday life. And so what I'm talking about here is, you always hear that 90% yoga is 90% practice and 10% theory, but that 10% theory can really enhance the practice when we apply it to our everyday lives. And this is the missing piece. So I hear a lot of things in yoga that oftentimes I say, in theory, that sounds wonderful. When we try to apply that to our everyday life, it's just bad advice. It's not the greatest thing. Like the removal of all your thoughts and the removal of all your feelings and emotions, as if what would be the next state. And so all I'm saying is thinking outside of the box, challenging yourself to see from a different perspective, and engaging material that may be complex, may be confusing, but definitely accessible when sticking with it. And so what I've seen during COVID right now is pretty much the celebration of mediocrity and a little bit of the death of greatness. And everyone's flying on the ideas of opinions and ideas and concepts. But there's the cohesion that I'm talking about is really taking everything at this moment that you've learned and make more appropriate choices for the future.
I'm biting my tongue because I want to catch you in your hasty generalizations that I agree with, but that I do see. But we're gonna
No, I got you.
sideline that.
Yeah.
Okay, so question number 2, which you've already started to answer. Question number 1 is who is it for? Number 2 is what are they going to get out of it?
That's a little harder question to ask, because basically when you're presenting this material, the word that comes up is basically shraddha. What you take to heart, turning towards the heart, very similar to courage, turning towards the heart. What you take to heart in this practice is how you will apply it into your teachings, into your offerings, into your everyday life, of something that allows you to do it more for them yourself, to be a better husband, son, wife, brother, sister, whatever that may be, and staying the course even when it gets challenging, staying the course even when you make mistakes or fail, and more so, counting the small little achievements along the way, the things that oftentimes go overlooked. And so what I'm getting at is the idea here is working with who you are, what skills you do have, and what are your core values, in the ways of applying them into some kind of methodology that not only you can use, but you can enhance the lives of others by just sharing that continuum of learning.
Amazing. That was really good. I have that last bullet, cohesion between who you are and I was just re-looking at Eric Barker's Barking Up the Wrong Tree, Surprising Success About What You Know, the surprising science between why everything you know about success is mostly wrong. He identifies success as an alignment, is the word he uses, interestingly, between who we are and what we choose to spend our energy, time, efforts on. You're saying cohesion between these different pieces. I also put down, I love the idea of what you take to heart, having more courage to step more boldly into continuing to develop, to be a better teacher, husband, wife, friend, sister, better person in relation to others, having self-confidence. You didn't say that, but having more confidence and resilience in a lifelong journey of development where you're willing to be a beginner, as you said, and then this cohesion between who you are and moving forward, which again, I'm seeing some cohesion between our, how we approach our teaching practice.
Yeah. I mean, Sean,
So good.
You in the university are Sean Waters, the professor.
Right.
But outside of the university, I know you as Sean Waters, the playful, kind, caring, loving man that is very compassionate to others.
Yeah.
These empathetic natures that we both possess in this way allows us to really engage, connect, and collaborate in ways of learning that are a little unorthodox. I think that that's my biggest setback right now. I don't have the qualifications or credentials or the pieces of paper. I just have the hard work, dedication, ethics, and integrity to stick with it and to keep my nose to the grindstone and really just and understand that there is a tempering process of this. The tapas of practice, the heat, the tempering, the friction that arises in the transformation and self-discovery, and hopefully the personal breakthrough is what we're going for. And sometimes it's not fun, it's not comfortable. And I teach.
And sometimes it is fun.
Oh, well, don't get me wrong.
Contrary, yes,
And on the contrary,
yes,
absolutely.
yes.
And making it fun is the key, and allowing it to be playful when you don't know what's happening, or like I said, like what before we even started, we just kind of had a brief moment, and I just said, I'm in the most confused, lost place in my life, but I know I'm on the right track, and I'm teaching better than ever. But I'm teaching to smaller groups.
Love it.
Back in the day, it was all about packing the room, filling the space, as many people you can get in there. And yeah, and it's based on finance, money, but even more so ego. Like, oh, look at me, look who it is. I have full classes, I have full workshops, I have full trainings. But the whole piece of that ends up being is there a consistency? Is it sustainable? And so when these unprecedented situations arise, yoga is wonderful in the world of love and light. When yoga gets very challenging, I had my teacher Manorma say at one point, you don't need to practice every day, but if you really need your practice, you better hope you've been doing something every day. And the writing
Right.
pieces that we've been sharing have been
Yes.
profound in me to brain dump and allow my emotions to be spread on the page rather than spewed at other people. And so what I'm really working on is, I used to call it rage on the page. And then I was like, okay, now you're getting into the Chicago mat, holding nice in one hand and the Chicago shank in the other. And so my point is, we need a little both of that, walking the razor's edge of spirituality, but even more so connecting that to nature, to science, to religion, to whatever the practices are, and what's the idea of teleology, like making purpose and meaning for what we're doing. And you know that I'm very big on those three words that are connected to the concept of Sat Chit Ananda. And I've made them how to apply that big teaching into this style of practice. For example, Sat, truth and being. I say that would be connected to Adhikara, the evaluation of your level of studentship and what you're trying to accomplish.
So a couple of really cool points of congruence here. One is, one of the benefits that you're going to get from this course is this opportunity to engage, connect, and collaborate in unorthodox ways. And one of the things I found in leading the Wisdom Workshop is that I recede. Instead of it being where I'm like, let me tell you all the wisdom I've gotten, and are you taking notes? And what did I just say? It's instead, no, this is the prompt. What is the good life? What does it mean to be happy? And then I disappear. And then this communication starts to happen where we see every person in the group as a certain locus of wisdom, experience, perspective. And then these little synchronous points happen that end up being like, wow, it's the group, it's the community that's the magic, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I call chit. And I say chit happens. The layers of
Shit
consciousness.
happens. We need to make a t-shirt. Is that out there yet?
It's already out there.
Okay, man.
Yeah,
That's so
all right.
good.
That's dumb jokes can come into the surface too. I have a bunch of them, and we like,
That's
oh,
so good.
my students are with me. Here it comes, he's got it. This is the the layup, the bad joke.
That's
But really,
so
what we
good.
need to do really is, and why I say that is like that cross contamination or cross pollination. Let's not that may not be
Yeah,
cross pollination in
like
the
that.
ways of taking all of our teachings from like the West Coast to the East Coast, to the northern regions to the southern regions, and cross pollinating. You could do that in any small group or bigger group, or now we have the facts online and teachings through Zoom or whatever that may be from afar. And what the universe is really trying to do is connect us. And collaborate and find cohesion in the connection. But what rises from that is, let's say data, information, systems, and how those systems interact, and then systems upon systems that allow us to understand, comprehend, and take that comprehension into knowledge and wisdom, which is clothed in consciousness, chit.
And so just the Sat Chit Ananda are the three words described as the ultimate reality, right? In traditional Vedanta, in traditional yoga philosophy, if I ask you like, what is really real, the answer would be Sat Chit Ananda, and that's Sanskrit you're speaking there, and that's
so
I remember that as being consciousness and bliss, but you're translating that as.
I'm saying truth and being. I just add a little bit. Let's say clothed in consciousness and scouring for bliss. That's just my little layer. So now let's take those three words and put it into what like a little demo of the fluid realms would be. The Sat portion of being would be what kind of student you are to gather this information, and what are you willing to do for it. And so placing yourself on learning how you learn, and then learning how you learn is how you're going to be able to be a better student, and how you're a better student is going to how you're going to be a better teacher. And so when we're working into these layers of of cohesion. The next layer would be chit, knowledge. Let's just go from there, consciousness. Now, I would say the next piece and you know I love this word, and it could be a lifetime study, arta, the aim, goal, point, purpose, or meaning of what you're trying to do. And so that's a loaded statement. And what you're doing is creating transactions of value of what you're working with that you have in your hands at this moment. The tools that you can at this time to not only gather more information, but find cohesion to apply the teachings in your everyday life, and enhancing, refining quality of the yoga practice that oftentimes is kind of closed off to the studio. And I'm more of an independent yoga teacher these days, and working on ways to understand that like idea of going in the space and institution is wonderful, but are you taking it back home where the real learning takes place? That takes you then into the idea of Ananda, and the word is the same on both of them. The, let's say, techniques of ecstasy and bliss. And what does that sustained bliss mean? Peace and contentment in your life.
There you go. So Sat Chit Ananda being consciousness bliss. You're also leading into this format of studentship, understanding who you are as a student, how you best learn. Chit as consciousness is also our aim, goal, point, purpose, meaning, where we're going.
Which would be, then I say arta, the connection of that word and I'm just making it synonymous, like, so taking that esoteric teaching into an application of the 21st century. And I think that's really important as the, yoga of the 21st century studying in the West, and we're hearing a lot about some buzzwords, but when we talk about appropriation, the kind of counter, or the let's say the flip of the coin would be assimilation. And that's what I'm here to teach. And in a full respect of the roots of tradition, the lines of lineage, and the history, the philosophy, the methodology, let's say the mythology, and really allowing it to be. So that's the equal sign. Like if you had to place all that together, so like, what do we have? We have being, and they call that sat. The becoming was like between sat and chit, and then what you're doing is in the end you just be. You live it, you breathe it. And so what I'm saying, it's a natural unfolding of what we are as humans, to remember that we're both human and divine, but ultimately here to research the more human endeavors, the catacombs of self, the archives of the collective unconscious, and how we pull that in excavation and unearthing it from the depths of our being into making meaning of a challenging, troubled, but beautiful world.
So we're going to zoom back out. We're working on a course development, broadly speaking, and the template for how we might begin to think about the course development. And so far we've answered who is in a position to benefit from the course. What concrete benefits are people going to get out of the course? And now we have I didn't ask this question, but you've been answering it partially, or started to, which is the essential content of the course. So we have the who, we have the what they're going to get, and then, or at least what benefits they're going to get. And then we're looking at, what is the content or ideas? I've been filling that out because we're looking at some of these esoteric ideas applied. So part of the content is to refresh the ancient philosophical ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to table this, and this is because I actually don't think the content is what's most important here, especially in an information age where this content is available. Maybe whatever, we don't need to argue or discuss that. What I do want to say, I think the most important question that's most interesting to me as a student of education is, how do we get there? What does the learning path look like? What's the process? What is the tapas of practice? Which tapas is a Sanskrit word that is heat. Is that
heat,
right?
Friction, rub. It's a tempering.
What is the heat, the friction, the tempering? If it's steel sharpening steel, what's the steel of this? What's the learning path, as it were?
Mm-hmm. So really, it's like, if you break down the main traditions, you have more of the hedonistic traditions, you have the middle path, and then you have the asceticism. So what we're going to say in this kind of fluid realms that we're building on the fly together. It's moving.
We're
It's
still
shifting, it's
exploring
shifting.
this. This is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
discovery, an
So
extended
yeah,
discovery call.
so it's going
Yeah,
to warp, its weft, it's going to twist, it's going to turn. But what like
yeah.
that Kundalini energy, this serpentine kind of cohesion, ends up being, how do we take it from asceticism into aesthetics, into arousing the sense of awe and wonder, and reaching for the beauty of the world.
How do we do that?
That's why I'm coming to see you, man.
So here's,
you're writing the manual, right?
well, that's yes and no. We
No,
wanted,
I'm just messing.
here's the, I've got 15 minutes a day. What do I do?
Hmm. Hmm.
What do you want me to do for those 15 minutes?
15 minutes a day. So if you had 15 minutes in a day, and the first thing is take a shower, put yourself together, prepare for your day, and then go sit.
Okay, I do all that already, and I want to get a 15 minutes a day like from this course that I'm going to be enrolling. What are you gonna have me do each day?
Okay,
Or
I see. I see.
or is it a daily thing? Do I just show up? Maybe it's not a daily thing. Maybe I just show up once a week for a collaborative Zoom call. Is that enough
Yeah,
for me to
well,
do
for
this?
right
Or
now, I don't really have those like applications
beautiful,
intact yet. To be honest,
great.
I have not. Yeah, this is at bare bones, and
Yeah,
kind of
yes,
building from the structures of like more of the rigidity of what I've presented, and how like, I got
great,
to get it, and I got to get it right, and I got to do this.
great.
And so what I'm saying is loosening the grip, and not letting yoga be your next obsession. Letting it be a learning process that's fun, that's playful, and not squeezing the life out of it. So what I would say is waking up, doing a little breathwork practice, and a brief meditation, and maybe a little contemplation right after that. If I had 15 minutes, that's what I would distill my day down, but I do that anyway. But my
That's great.
point of what I'm getting at is that inviting these simple practices that are monumental changes in your life. The body loves habit, it loves pattern, and it loves ritual. And so what you're really doing is creating rituals, transforming methods of coping and surviving into rituals of thriving and flourishing. That's the practice.
I just saw Nikon, I think it's called. There's a form of Japanese psychotherapy that the whole foundation of it is to treat our most mundane things that we do with sacredness. So the dishes become, that's the trote exam, that, the walk becomes a sacred ritual. The conversation with our significant other becomes a sacred ritual. We basically, everything that we do, we imbue with a sense of profound importance, and that's the basis of this psychotherapeutic technique. And I'm like, that's brilliant.
So you're tapping into what we were talking about before, the idea of going back to these early, more like Chinese and Japanese teachings that are more like the path is the path until there's another path. And what I'm saying is that a lot of this is like finding that path for you, realizing that you do have choice, and it's your everyday life, like the practice that comes to life in your everyday actions. And this is where, so of 15 years, everything for me was basically scholarly, inquisitive, and very much like attaining information. Now it's time to apply it. So what I'm doing in my practice is what I'm sharing. When I catch myself and my Zen dog really looks at me when I'm about to raise my voice to my beloved partner, and I catch myself, that is a small victory and a little success. That has been a hard-earned battle from my first major failure in life. And when I'm saying these are monumental breakdowns in life, and I'll just share really quickly because we don't want to spend too much time, but a relationship of a long time that picked up and never talked to me again. And so really embracing that as the launch of my spiritual practice, because I can do better. I have more to offer.
I love that. And that kind of, there's a couple things that are really cool here. One, you teaching what you most want to learn, I think is really honest and profound, especially as someone 15 years deep into a really intense scholarly investigation of, aren't you doing a map of the goddesses and how they correspond to archetypal
Yeah.
psychology? And I
Oh, yeah.
don't want to, so
Yeah.
just as like a small taste
Yeah.
of how deep and wide you've gone on this,
Yeah.
and not wide as in like all over the place, but wide as in really surveying the land of his tradition, taking it on its own terms. And now it is, like you said, this process of application transforming forward.
Yeah, the breadth and the depth of the conversations. And so what I'm really studying in the Sri Vidya understanding, the auspicious wisdom of the goddess, is the Sri Yantra, the Sri chakra. And really, that's a vast study.
Does Shri mean three?
Shri means auspicious, abundant. It means
Okay.
Beauty. It means the +1 concept of the universe. It never runs out. It'll always give more. And what we're working on is a matter compiler. We're working on a refraction of self that's a collaborative endeavor. And we're all building our own periodic tables that have sidebars, that have drop-down boxes, and there's enough resources. Now we need to learn how to share the information. That's the project here. So I call it, what I'm calling it is the anthology of the goddess. From Shakti to from Shakti, the early forms, let's say early forms of prana, the breath, as the breath, into intentional offerings of the highest form of an offering is giving love and a gift. And so what I'm getting at is it takes you to the goddess of, I mean, we can go through many layers, but Lalita Tripura Sundari, Shivakama Sundari, all these names are insignificant right now, but what we're doing is understanding the layers and shades of grace as refraction of light, of sound, of how we take consciousness in from our senses and really allow ourselves this negative capability from John Keats of understanding that it didn't have to be this way, but this is the way it is. Can we work with what we're being offered? And can we understand where our, strong points are, our weaknesses are, our platforms to learn, grow, develop, but also things that we can let go of, things that we can move past, things that we can, not give ourselves a bad time about. Really enjoy the setbacks and failures along the way that reach us into the heart of the matter and taking these topics seriously.
So we've done, this is really great. And I want to highlight from everything that we just did in this last section, which is on learning path or learning process. Mm-hmm. So in education, educational theory, the question is always, what are the students doing that is really what they're learning? So if I am giving a lecture, what are the students doing? They're listening and taking notes. So that's what's actually happening. It's not the information. If I'm putting them in small groups to talk with each other, what are the students doing? They're communicating. And so the other catchphrase that stuck with me from my time in education is, and continuing, is whoever's doing the talking is doing the learning. So if I'm a teacher that's just talking, I'm the one that's actually learning more than everyone else. And then when you have a captive audience in the traditional education system, why I'm saying all that is what I'd really want us to do as we move forward in the next 7 weeks is really refine what and how you're going to guide students to create the actions, both in our container. You and I are doing it right now. Mm-hmm. We're practicing this kind of art of conversation. But what are they going to do daily? You said breath work, brief meditation, contemplation, and then giving a gift of love or giving some kind of loving gift. I put that on there as a little out of order, but that is one that anchors me in a sense of, I'm going to join this class because I want a morning ritual of breath work, a brief meditation, a contemplation that I can do in my pages. And then I want to ground that to be able to give some kind of small gift of love. And I'm going to do that every day. And I'm going to use that to progress. In addition to the weekly setup, the weekly format that we have, now I have what feels to me like a learning path, a process that I can do that's more than me just, I just watched this other lecture on my YouTube. And I'm not really doing anything.
And Sean, you just hit the nail on the head of the failure of those teachings. We tend to, I tried to move too fast. Let's just say that. Like
me too.
and then try and like press that on, like, why aren't you getting it? What's going on? Like, what's
Yes.
happening here? And it was all about me. And I've realized that, and I see that in a lot of
Fantastic.
colleagues. And this is not about me anymore. And so when I'm willing to put my own insecurities down and my ability to take criticism, even from my students,
yes,
then I can be a better teacher. So you could be, like a mediocre teacher, you could be a good teacher, and you could be a great teacher. You could be an excellent teacher. And I think, and then you'll go back to being a poor teacher at times. But my point of what I'm getting at is the more we embrace that this is not about us and we're doing it more for than ourselves, I'm more excited about this training. And I'm not denouncing any of my other ones, please. But what I'm getting at is because I have 6 students that I know right now are eager to learn.
yes,
And they're more in, and I'm not calling them beginners by any means, but that's why they're coming to see me on this 200 hour.
which actually, hold on, that might be the best thing to say about somebody in terms of a learning process.
Yeah.
That's like the highest I could put you is on eager beginner. And I've had people come into the workshop being like, I don't know, I'm not as advanced as everyone here, and I'm like, the fact that you just said that means that yes, you are.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Yes.
And that was the pitfall of my failure, trying to project my greatness rather than share it.
Great.
And so, and that, let's not say greatness, proficiency, understanding, comprehension.
15 years of in-depth study. So
yeah, that's and I'm trying to kind of like, I've been humbled more in the last, let's say, 2 years in the ability to understand, like, I'm fine with saying I don't know, but I have people and teachers and friends that do, or they may not, but we have resources and we'll do this together, and we can reach, into these strands of like Indra's web, Indra's jeweled net. And I think it's really important to understand that we all have gifts and offers, our gems and rubies that we polish into the diamonds that are heart of refraction and share that space. So for me, everything's been mental. Fluid Realms is all about letting the mind sink into the heart and resonate and find cohesion of the body, mind, and heart, and realize that the spiritual practices allow us to connect more fully to nature, more fully to each other, and it's what the universe is trying to do. That Shri, the word Shri, is about connection, collaboration. What the feminine energy does, it unites us.
And that the jeweled net of Indra is one of the most beautiful images from all of cultural humanity, and that is the sense of, if you imagine, just for people listening to this that haven't heard that before, if you imagine a net where each point of intersection of the threads of that net is a little tiny jewel that shines, reflects light, and that all of that net taken together is like that, I'm seeing like the World Wide Web emoji where it's just like a, it's like a globe.
And those little gems are where we make meaning together.
That's so cool. And it's almost like each of us is like a little node on that. So it's like I might be a net, but then so is the Ganesha image on that I'm looking at in your background might be another jewel on this net.
Yeah, and then you have Hanuman sitting over in the corner, and we can get to these conversations. But really, I want to interject, not to shift too far, but Sean, both you and I were blessed with wonderful mothers.
I was going to bring that up earlier.
And
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, like game, set, match. Thank you, Mom.
Yes. And we're done.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm saying is I'm finally ready to offer more of a nurturing, loving, and motherly platform of teaching that really has put down my, years of being raised in Chicago fistfight culture and bond trading and the more aggressive, kind of intense grin or bear it, just you don't talk about it, you take it outside, into having these more challenging conversations and not just agreeing to disagree, but see why we can make connection. Where are the points that we can actually receive each other, enhance each other, refine the conversation, and realize it's okay to go off and do if you study Zen Buddhism and I study Sri Vidya or whatever that may be, there is cohesion, connection, learning, and skills that we can all learn in a more motherly way that receives us, that takes us in and holds us in the nurturing process.
There's two things. In addition, we can bring in our experience as a biochemist, my master's degree in biochemistry. I don't have one, or my practice as a group counselor, or my work in the schools, or my work as a mother that I've been doing. Like all of these
Yeah.
things end up being super rich.
So you see now that ends up who can be invited to this conversation is a
Right.
much bigger pool of whoever is eager to learn
Yes.
and be sincere and sensitive about the conversations to add more joy and compassion and empathy in the world. And I failed at this. I'm admitting my deep failure in the culture and community that I present with in the ways of being a know-it-all or pushing and pressing and saying, this is gotta, it's this way, it's gotta be this way. Now I've loosened that grip and realized like learning to listen so that your voice may be heard and allowing yourself to receive information. What I'm really big on right now is being a better listener.
And yes, that's why I love Clubhouse. That's why I think that's so profound. The other thing I wanted to put in the conversation I thought you would appreciate is I heard someone give a discourse on the essence of um, good mothering from the divine feminine. They were saying that a good mother helps you know that who you are is what matters, not what you do.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that we are not measuring ourselves against these things that we accomplish. A good mother makes me feel like I am whole and complete, and that my accomplishment is just that I exist. That you're not measuring me based on what I do or do not do. That then there is even a measuring. It's just a wholeness in what we are, which I thought is interesting. Gets me all
Yeah.
because I think that's a gift that not a lot of people have. Basically,
Well,
is why
and
that gets
also,
me.
yes, and the invitation to the masculine energy as well. Really
Right.
allowing it to be in the same conversation and the
Love
ability
it.
to soften and the ability to no longer be on a pedestal that puts the other gender encoded positions on the sidelines. I think we need to understand what equality is, what equity is, and
Yes.
engaging in these inviting conversations where everyone's really welcome. And
Yes.
in the mainstream of yoga, everyone's very welcome. But when we get to these more disciplined, dedicated, and serious practices, you have to call upon a deeper integrity, a deeper intention, and let's say a deeper will to want to challenge yourself outside of societal norms,
Yes.
traditions that can oftentimes be overly rigid, and then even more so to the depth, value, and richness that lies in the unknown.
So we're nearing towards the end. So there's one other key part that haven't gotten to, and I do. We should just do this again. We'll call this a part one if you're
Mhm.
into it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean.
And I wanna take this course when it goes live in the summer. So we'll put something in the.
Yeah.
We'll have a way of people signing up to your Substack. Might be the best way to keep keep abreast of when this goes live.
And what I've really been doing right now is building that word by word, breaking
Yes.
down Sanskrit words and
Love it.
writing 10 pages on one word.
So
And,
cool. Okay.
and
On that point, we've done who is it for? We've done what benefits are they going to get? We've done what are the we started looking at essential content of the course, even though I didn't ask you that. We spent the most time, and I'm glad that we did, on the process. What are students going to do weekly, daily, since that what they do is what they'll learn. And then the fifth one, the last one, is what's the outline of the journey? So basically, where do we start? Where do we go? And where do we end? We
yeah,
can play with how long this is, and it's kind of fun. I've been playing with this in the Wisdom Workshop. I really like the 7 week, as there's a 40-day chunk in the middle.
mhm,
It's like, it seems like a long time at the beginning, and then you get to the end of it and it goes by really quickly. So I really am a big fan of 7 weeks when I was thinking about 4 weeks, 5 weeks,
yeah,
9 weeks, 12 weeks, 15 weeks. But so we're looking at the last piece of this to put together. And we also didn't look at modalities, but we
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
is this synchronous, asynchronous? How big are the groups? There's some other questions we're going to want to flesh out in terms of helping you design this course.
Mhm.
But I'm curious, do you have quick answers for where do we begin and where do we end?
Yeah, so I would model the same thing 7 days, because there's 7 layers of the skin, and any good cleanse is 49 days. And so
Yes.
what you're doing is a
Awesome.
cleansing process of really doing a little detox.
I
And
love it.
so it's the highest form of self-care. So the beginning of this is, what's cool about it is I'm starting your program on Wednesday, and then I'm
Yeah.
starting my program on Friday. So while I'm being a student, I'm still being the teacher.
Yes.
And each week, what we're going to start on is embracing the level of studentship, week 1. Eventually working through
Awesome.
the ideas of ARTA and goal, point, purpose, or meaning. And my teacher began that the universe doesn't have that. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but I say, I beg to differ, because we're here to make it. And so then what I'm doing by coming together in collaboration and working and moving through, eventually at the end, we can sip the nectar, the ananda. And what I'm getting at, though, is this whole conversation is all about the rasa theory and the tastes and flavors, the elixirs of emotion that arouse the sense of awe and wonder, that allow it to be rich, that allow it to be fun, playful, and beautiful along the way.
So it's almost like you could say, I like this learning adventure metaphor where we're going on like an expedition or we're going on a journey, as that's how I set up the Writing a Good Life course, where the first part of it is establishing presence. The second part of it is figuring out big goal, purpose. The third part of it is figuring out the lay of the land, so we can kind of actually begin map making. And then we start
Absolutely.
designing the path that we're going to go on. We start resourcing ourselves on the path. We go deeper on that path, and then we reflect on where we've been. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we end with reflection. What I love
Absolutely.
about this one, if you bring in rasa theory, is this idea of tastes, of experiences. It's almost like I almost see like an image of this beautiful 7-course meal,
Yes.
where we sit down for number 1, where we identify studentship. Number 2, we identify our goals, points, purposes, and meanings. Number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to reflection, giving thanks, right? How
Exactly. Like,
cool is
so,
that?
so transforming primal hunger into elegant cuisine of meals that we make together and break bread by a longer table. I mean, I think that
Yes.
they say great fences make good neighbors. And I would say longer tables make good conversation.
Wow. Well, we're going to we've got the meat of the course that we haven't gone into, but I hope this was helpful in at least framing how I would approach the query of how to package what it is that you have to offer in the spirit of gift giving, where one thinking who might appreciate the gift, what are they going to get when they unwrap it? And I've had a hard time answering that, because different people get different things from it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
noticed you had the same.
And I was going to say the group also is going to be how we navigate this
Correct.
journey together. And so you're starting an expedition. You're embarking on an adventure that oftentimes has little, curious things that you didn't plan for, unexpected events, but even more so, you don't have to do it alone.
And then, so you have that is a huge thing that people get from the Wisdom Workshop as well, is that just sense of community, where I think we're so in need of that right now. You have these essential content of the course. And I think the particular challenge for you is that word essential.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to put content of the course, but you might also think about, like, if I'm reading a book, you have a notes section. So you have this essential, these are our key terms. And then do you want to like go fractal knowledge? Like, here's the file, here's the Dharma file on Sat. Here's the Dharma file on Chit.
The zip file, yep. Click the button, it goes over here.
And so you have all of it. So you're looking at what are the essential things, like you would make sure that people have this information. So for Writing the Good Life, it's you got to have mindfulness. You got to have a free writing ability. You got to have an idea of what, so you're going to pick out that content. You have, which we have, you have the practices, the key practices you're going to have people do in workshop and between workshops, the daily breath work, what do we say? Breath work, meditation, contemplation, and giving a loving gift. And then we have like your outline of what's the learning process look like? Where do we start? Where do we go? And where do we end? And now you have you have a package that I can see, and like you're there. It's already made.
Geez, Sean, I just have to say thanks for putting like sometimes the idea of cohesion for me is my most challenging piece. My mind works very quickly and I have to slow down. So thank you for allowing me to slow down and be a little bit more inquisitive. and a little bit more contemplative with this process that is in the making.
Yep.
It's
That's
not
right.
like just letting the can of worms open. It's
Yep.
slowly and meticulously choosing the lures that we're going to go fishing with and applying them at the appropriate time, season, weather, application.
Great metaphor. The last thing, we said before that this is recursive, which means in the educational literature, it's something you come back to. So you're bringing your students' attention back to a foundational practice. And when you come back to it, it deepens. Also a sense of a spiral, right? Like you're spiraling back to it, but when you come back to it again, you're a little bit more. And the big joke in a philosophy course is you end the course where you began. So it's like, well, have we gone anywhere? Actually, yes, we have.
Yeah. And not getting caught up in the momentum, but really like slowing the pace down and learning at your pace and really engaging at your own level. So how do we engage in a universe that's engaging with us and allow it to be fun, playful, and curious?
Which for me is, as you know, is cultivating these conversations with people that I get a ping. I have that moment of synchronicity, or whatever you want to call it, where I'm like, wow, the fact that the way your study of Sanskrit is illuminating my study of education and philosophy is for me a clear, and why I was so excited. I think because of that genuine interest in not only the content, but the gesture of, I have this that I want to share. And I know you do, and I know the intention is in that right place, that it's like how it just yields like, well, we could do this, let's do a live call where I walk you through course design so that we can share like, oh, you want to design a course? Actually check out this conversation I had with Matt. And as you're going along, you answer these questions, like pause the freaking video. Right.
And Sean, I just want to be clear that I'm not a scholar of Sanskrit. I just know a lot of the concepts and ideas, but I'm beginning my study here shortly, and I am actually going to study the language.
That's amazing. And I studied Pali to study early Indian Buddhism, and just the seeing the world from a different language. I'm definitely no scholar. The other thing that you said that's interesting, and we can kind of end on this, that you don't have the certificate, you don't have the master's degree or the formal training that might have you be an authority in the field. And what's so interesting to me is I think that paradigm is changing.
I was going to say the same thing.
That you don't need that. If you have a true passion to do what you're doing, and you have this energy of wanting to give the gift of what you've learned, and you're willing to do the work of putting together the Dharma File Substack, which we'll link in the comments, then, I think that's what you need. That's your authority.
I think the beauty is to take these esoteric teachings, like I said, and allow them to be practical, pragmatic, and accessible for the yoga of the 21st century that's evolving at the present moment. And what I'm getting at even more so is that we're changing, and we walk into the unknown every single day, and we might as well really give it our all, give it our our best effort to understand that if we're getting the same results, it's time to change the practice, the process. And right now, this is just a tiny little shift, but it's going to be exponential in let's say the value that it can offer to people in deep communication, connection, and collaboration when they want to study philosophy and apply it to their life. But even more so, love your life and love this life to the fullest.
Well, here is to enjoying the nectar of experiential bliss in the next 7 weeks and beyond. I am so glad that we did this, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Sean, thank you so much. Your wisdom that you're offering and your knowledge, I've been inspired by what you're doing. And I think that we need more educators that are willing to step out of their norm. Like this is like, I call it like the Clark Kent and Superman. Like you have to really know what you're doing, like in the telephone booth, and know what you're doing in your home. And I think it's something that is very inviting and warm and welcoming. And I said, thank you for taking me in and receiving me and being my teacher as we teach each other.
Yeah, I have a feeling we may be reciprocating our relative fields of inquiry for some time. So I'm really glad we're doing this. If you want more information on the Wisdom Workshop coming up, I'll put that link in the comments. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Definitely share this with anyone that you know that's trying to design a course. Or if you have any questions for me or Matthew, send them our way. I'll put some contact information down there. And this is a real pleasure. I am like fully invigorated now and a little past due.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
All right. Well, Sean, you always know what I say. Make sure the peace is flowing in and make sure the peace is flowing out. Peace in, peace out, brother.
Peace in, peace out. Have a good one. Thank you, Matt.